this idea actually just came into my head about a week ago. I was just browsing online through photos and I saw an image with a textured overlay. And textured overlays are great. They add a lot of artistic value to a photo. They can help fill negative space if the negative space isn't really doing anything for the image to begin with. Um, but the problem that I noticed was that it was just kind of thrown onto there, just slapped on. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I've got this folder here. We're going to work on 4 different images. We're going to work with um, elements that can be found in PhotoFrame. So for those of you that may not be familiar with what PhotoFrame has, or if you just think that it's just edges and frames, there are actually a bunch of backgrounds and textured overlays that can be used for this particular purpose. And like I said, everything that we're going to do pretty much in this webinar will be out of PhotoFrame and Photoshop. So what I mean by what I was saying where the texture was just overlaid. Let's take this image. I've got this first image here. We'll bring it into Photoshop. And this is an HDR image. This is a final version of an image that I posted a while ago. I took this in Oregon. This is Crown Point, I believe. And if you kind of walked over the top of the stairs and behind this building, you would see the Columbia River Gorge, which is beautiful. Now, what I saw in this particular image, not with this image, but with another image was, we'll go back to the Finder and we'll take an image right here into Photoshop as well. We'll open it up on its new layer, on its own layer. Now, I took this image this past weekend, I think. I was walking around Worcester, Massachusetts with my friend who was in town, Jacob, and I saw this, and I do this pretty often. Whenever I see some sort of texture or a pattern that is appealing, I will just shoot it for this particular reason. Now, the easiest way to explain a texture overlay or an overlay is we take this, we select everything. So I just hit Command or Control A. We'll drag it onto our original image. Now, when I let go, I'm going to press and hold the Shift key. And what that does is it'll stretch the image. It'll make sure that the image is kind of stretched to fit the underlying layer. Now, what we can do is there are various things you can do. You can start dropping the opacity, which kind of now you start to have this textured overlay. Or if we go back to 100% and with my move tool selected, so that's V on your keyboard, or you can select this, the first icon on your Photoshop toolbar. If you hit Shift plus or minus, you can start these blending modes right here. Photoshop has a nice list of blending modes. So what it's doing is it's blending the layer with the layers below it. If you hit Shift plus or minus, you can cycle through. And so you can see how this is great and everything. Some of them are far uglier than others, maybe. But you have these various options. And what it's, like I said, what it's doing is it's just blending the 2 layers. And the only problem that I see is, for this in particular, is there is no real rhyme or reason to it. It just seems like there was a textured overlay applied to the whole image, and that's it. That's great. But I think that there's more that can be done, especially if you craft the textures to fit the image. So what does that mean? Well, let's just go ahead and we'll delete this layer here. And we have our original image. Now, let's go into PhotoFrame. And actually, at the end of the webinar, when I go through the images, I'll actually show you how to get your own textures like this file if you want to get it into PhotoFrame and thereby be able to use the various tools in PhotoFrame. I'll show you how to do that at the end. It's actually pretty easy. All right, so I'm going to get to PhotoFrame by going through the File menu, but we also have this onOne menu over here, this palette. Sometimes, if you own the full suite, you'll notice that some of the products might be missing. You can always just kind of toggle, and they'll come back. The problem is, and this is a little bit of a bug that's going to be resolved, sometimes when you cancel out of a product prematurely, some of the products that you see listed will disappear. But if you don't know how to get to this onOne palette, just go to Window, Extensions, and select onOne. If you toggle it, it'll turn it on and off. That's another way to get the applications to refresh. The other way is to go to File, Automate, and then go to PhotoFrame rather. When you go into PhotoFrame, you're going to be treated to the library of basically effects and elements. We have, you can see on the bottom right here, there's a count of 1,642 different items. And these are broken down into categories as you see listed here. So for the purposes of this webinar, we're going to live pretty much in this texture overlays category. If you hit the arrow button to expand, you'll see the subcategories of textures. So what I was doing when I was building this webinar, I was first found images that I felt would benefit from some sort of texture. And you'll see, as we add the textures, you'll see my rhyme or reason. So what I was doing was I was just kind of scrolling through. Now I'm not gonna scroll through the entire category of overlays for this particular webinar just because I don't want to kill so much time. But this is exactly what I was doing. I would just kind of scroll through and see what I wanted to do. The first thing that I wanted to do was to get something into the sky. If you remember, the sky had this kind of radial blur, making the clouds, giving the clouds an appearance that they're moving through the frame. I kind of wanted to complement them. So you can see here we have a clouds subcategory, and I just will go through and I'll look to see if I can find one that matches. And so I like this one, number 5. What I'm going to do now is add frame. What PhotoFrame will do is it'll append the frame to on top of your image. I'm just going to move these panels out of the way so we can have the image. And what I'm free to do now is you can see the texture is on a layer above the image, and this is really important. Under the options palette, which if you don't know how to get to it, just go to Window and then toggle this hide or show options, or you can hit Command or Control 9. I always like to have the second radio button selected. Apply each frame to a new layer. That way, if I can go into PhotoFrame in increments, each iteration of the image will apply into its own layer group, which for me, someone who has a touch of OCD, is really nice to have everything kind of organized the way I want. When I hit that apply frame, what I'm able to do now is start to visualize. I can see what this overlay looks like. And I can see that the clouds do bring a nice sense of drama, and I still get a touch of that motion. So what I'm free to do here is I can adjust anything I want using PhotoFrame. I can adjust the size. So if I want, what I can do is I can move the frame and adjust the positioning of the clouds. If I want, I can rotate it, and we'll do that in other images. But I can get a good live preview, and that's why PhotoFrame is fantastic. It's because I can get a live preview of what the image will look like. I also have in PhotoFrame, I showed you those blending modes a moment ago. We have blending modes here as well. So as you hover over them, you'll see the different options. And so it's just a matter of finding one that you like, or you don't need to use one at all. I'm just going to stick with normal here. Now, we have an opacity slider here. And obviously, the lower you go in your opacity, the less appearance of the frame will be. So if you go to 0%, the entire frame, or the overlay technically, is removed. At 100%, the entire overlay is displayed. I found that I don't touch opacity in PhotoFrame. That's simply because of this. Now I can hit apply to render this. I'm not going to because I saved that already in advance as a layer. So I've got it right here. This is the same clouds I just showed you. And again, just to kind of streamline things. Now, the nice thing about this is when PhotoFrame applies that texture, and you can see it on its own layer right here, it also builds a layer mask, which is very convenient. And this is the whole crux of this webinar. This is what this webinar is all about. Instead of just applying the clouds here. Now, why would I have clouds, which you can see some remnant of over this building, over the structure? I don't really care for that. What this layer mask allows me to do is select a brush with black, and then I'm going to bring my opacity up to 100%. I'll keep my flow up at 100% as well, and I could just start brushing that out. Now, what I'm essentially doing is dictating exactly where the pattern appears. One of the ways that I found that I like to mask is and I do this in Photo Tools as well, is I kind of draw this outline of the thing. And I'm being very sloppy here just because, and I've said it before, it's never fun watching someone mask. Maybe it is. When I draw my outline, if I hit the backslash button, which is typically above the enter or return key, Photoshop overlays the mask. So anything that is in this shade over here, the mask or the clouds in this case are being removed. And so what I'm free to do is just kind of draw through. And this is what I'm hoping everyone out, on the webinar today gets out of this session is go ahead and use textures, but have a rhyme or reason. Don't just take everything at face value. As we go through different images, you'll see the different ideas or different ways that you can use texture overlays to your advantage. So we can hide that. And if you want, if this really bothers you, which it does bother me, just change your color from black to white. I just hit the X key to do that and just paint that in. And I have a little bit of feathering on my brush, which is why it's not going from the edge. That's fine. Okay, so you can see that we can toggle the layer mask if we disable the layer mask. You can see the clouds there. And we enable it. Now we have the clouds where we want it. Now, you remember I said in PhotoFrame I didn't adjust the opacity, and that's because if I adjusted the opacity in PhotoFrame, let's say I set the opacity to 50% and I hit apply, that 50% is the maximum that I can adjust in Photoshop. But because I left it at 100, I now have the ability in Photoshop to adjust the opacity. So I can go here. If those clouds are too much, I can drop the opacity over here and let the original clouds, which you can see here, bust through. So, and this is bothering me too. I'm just going to fix this up right now. I don't want to stare at that. Okay, so that's why I like to use the opacity slider in Photoshop, because I know that the 100% that I saw in PhotoFrame will match the 100% here. And maybe I want a very strong dramatic cloud, but in this case here, I can just kind of drop it down. And you can, again, you can adjust your blending modes as well. Now, what I want in this case, in this image here, what we're going to do is we've applied a textured overlay. We've applied clouds, and in a way, I like this better because we have, especially like over here, we have some body. If we turn it off, this is cool. This this is how I posted the image when it first went live online. But when I was playing around with it, I was like, oh, you know what? I actually like this a little bit better because you're still getting that sense of motion, but you're getting these clouds up here. And especially, I like the positioning of the clouds right at the top of the structure. Now what we can do is we can go back into PhotoFrame. And I can go to I'm just going to select my background layer, and I'll go to File, and again, Automate, and go to PhotoFrame. Now what I'm free to do is, I could have added another texture, but I felt that the texture in the building and the stairs was enough. I wanted to add a frame. And so what I can do is, we have this gurus category here. And you can see that we've got some of our friends of onOne. These are people that have kind of collaborated with us and built content for us using our products. And so one of my favorites actually in here is Dave Cross. Dave is actually, he's a great guy, and he has done webinars for us. And I love, if you scroll through his various templates, he does some really nice work. Like, I especially love this one, but I don't want to use it here. I'm actually going to use that first one. And I'll hit Add Frame. The difference, if we go back to the library here really quickly, so there are these two buttons that can be somewhat confusing. There's Add Frame and Apply Frame. If you hit Add Frame, it'll take the frame and it'll bring you back into the PhotoFrame interface, allowing you to use the controls. If you hit apply frame, it's just going to apply the frame as a layer into Photoshop, and it'll drop you right into Photoshop. So if you know that you don't want to make any adjustments in PhotoFrame, you just want to get into Photoshop, just hit apply frame. But if you want to, in this case here, use these photo tools tools, or photo frame tools rather, hit add frame and not apply. The reason why I want to do that is because I can use this color dropper now. And so we've applied this frame, and you can see the frame listed right over here. I can sample colors from the entire scene. And typically, frames, I think frames look better with darker colors. And we could have gone with pitch black, but even if it's as close to black as possible, I like selecting it from the image because it adds a little bit of a visual consistency. So that's kind of the way I like to attack it. Roger asks if we should always select the background layer before loading PhotoFrame and iterations. I do. I always just go back to the background layer, and what that'll do is it'll create, so whatever we do here, it'll put it onto its own layer or layer group, which I can then order in Photoshop in the layers palette. So, and I'll show you that in a second. So again, over here, what I can do is I could adjust the opacity, but I'm not. I'll do that in Photoshop. I can add a blur if I want, just kind of soften it just a bit. So you can kind of see how it gets a little softer in these textures. And I might do that a little bit more just because the sky itself is already kind of soft. That's too much. And then you can also adjust the size. So let's say you don't want as much of this black pattern. You can do this in here. So you can see as we go, up, the frame disappears. As we go down, the frame gets closer into the center. So you can just toggle this as you see fit. You can also, this is essentially kind of like a free transform. So you can either do this in PhotoFrame if you want to visualize, or you can just leave it at 0, and then, which I'll do right now, I'll hit cancel because I've got the layer right here. There it is. And I can hit Command T, which is the free transform. It's edit, free transform, or Control T on a PC. And now I'm free to just adjust the size of the frame. Oh, well, it'd help if I actually select the right layer. There we go. And now we can adjust the positioning and the size of the frame. So that's another way that you can do it. But you can see that you've got this. If we start from here and we just show you this original layer, it's a good image, but as you start building it out, you start to get some cool elements and the image takes on a new life. So that's the first example that I want to show you. All right, let's close out of here. And we'll go back to Finder and get the second image. All right, this was taken, when was it taken? I think over the summer of last year. And it was in Belchertown, the Belchertown State School, this abandoned structure, which has now since been completely sealed up, which is a huge bummer. All these doors that were open are now totally shut. And it's a good shot, but I wanted to add some stuff to it. Just make it pop a little bit. And again, this is all about finding the right texture for the right image and then selectively applying it, removing it from areas that don't make sense. Because if you're going to try to embellish on an image, make it consistent, make it make sense. At least that's my rationale. There is no right or wrong. That's the bottom. There is no right or wrong. As much as I'm trying to show you how I do it, I find it more visually pleasing when I see textures selectively applied to an image because it shows some sort of methodology as opposed to just slapping something on. So take it as you will. Let's go to File, Automate, and go to PhotoFrame. I see the question here by Kelly as to how to that shortcut key to show the mask. I'll show that to you in a second once we get this texture applied. So again, let's go to the texture overlays over here. And a lot of times what I'll do is when I'm thinking about a texture that I want to apply, I'll look to see if there's a subcategory that kind of fits the actual image. So in this case here, I'm going to select this architecture, and I can start seeing these various textures. And so again, what I do is I just kind of Let me just make sure the screen catches up. Okay. I look to find a texture that I like. And in this case here, I like this texture because I'm starting to see detail over here in this column, over here in this column, over here, and even a little bit over here. So I'm going to hit, in this case, I'm just going to drop into Photoshop. I'm not going to make any edits. I just want to hit Apply Frame. Actually, I didn't even need to do that because I had the layer. So let me cancel once the PhotoFrame dialog box comes up. I forgot that I've got that ready. Unless it doesn't let me cancel. There we go. See, this is exactly why I like to have layers prepped, because no one likes dialog boxes. Let me get rid of that layer and we'll turn it on again. Okay. Here is the textured overlay. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to see this kind of texture, this image appear somewhere, just like this. It appears. And for me personally, this doesn't do it, because I wouldn't expect to see this kind of texture on brick. It doesn't make sense. Over here, it kind of does make sense. It almost looks like this paint was chipped away, revealing the stone or cement underneath. And so what we're free to do is go to this layer mask that PhotoFrame conveniently built for us and just start quickly drawing it out. I don't want it on the ground at all. And what it's doing is it's just revealing the layer underneath it. You could cycle through, like sometimes what I'll do before I start masking is I'll just go through like this. With the move tool selected, which is again V, I'll go Shift plus and start cycling through the different blending modes. In this case here, hard light actually works kind of well too. So I'm going to stick with hard light. I'll go back to my brush. And the question that was asked was, how do you show the mask, the overlay? It's the backslash key. It shows this, what your mask is. And so as I draw, it'll kind of overlay this color. So what I'm basically doing is removing the texture from where I don't want it, the brick. And this can be a tedious process. I'll show you a quick trick right now of how to make it a little bit quicker. Let's say you know exactly where you want this to apply. Let's delete this mask. So effectively what we've done is we've restored the image with the entire overlay. With this group selected, if I press and hold the Alt key on a PC or the Option key on a Mac and click on this new layer mask icon, it fills the mask with black. So now it's removed the entire mask. Black basically hides whatever effect is on that layer, and white will reveal it. So before I was painting with black on a white layer to remove the effect. Now I've got a black layer mask. If I change my color from black to white, I can do that just by hitting this X key to swap. With the same brush selected, if I paint in, you can see the mask applied. And it's revealing the texture exactly where I want it. And now, again, I'm not going to go crazy with the accuracy of where it applies. I just kind of want to show you. But you can see how, even with this really quickly, how the wall looks a little bit better. You can always adjust the opacity now if it's too dark. And you can play with the different blending styles. But here, you can go over here just to make it consistent, because these two walls were the same material. Just kind of draw it on. And normally I would draw around the two banisters over there, but it doesn't really. You kind of get what I'm trying to get at over here. But you can see how these two walls, and you might think this is overkill, but if, when you're out in the scene and you're kind of crafting your shot, you've got your camera, you've got your tripod, you're moving your legs to kind of fit whatever you want in the frame, or you're using your telephoto zoom to fit in. It's the same thing. You're crafting what appears. So you've gone ahead and you've already figured out what appears in your four walls. Now, with post-processing, you can, if you want more texture or if you want this kind of pattern over here, you have that ability to do it with relative ease. Instead of just taking it everywhere and it doesn't make sense to have this pattern over here. To me, it doesn't. So by using layer masks, you can control exactly where it appears. Now what we're free to do is go back into PhotoFrame. So I'm going to select my background, and I'm going to go back into PhotoFrame because what I want to do is now bring some more kind of like cracked patterns to the image. So let's go into PhotoFrame. And again, this is kind of, I want this to give you an idea of how you can use various frames. This works well. You might, during this webinar, we're not going to attack, I shouldn't say that, we're not going to really attack any portraits. We will attack one portrait, but I don't necessarily like seeing patterns on top of people unless it's ultra stylized. Yesterday, Jim DeVitale did a webinar with us where he was using displacement maps. The image is the video is ready to go live. It'll go live tomorrow. You have to watch it if you didn't catch it yesterday, where he basically takes these textures and he contours them to, say, a face. So it's very, very cool. We're not going to get that detailed here. We're going to do that. I want to do this in series, so this is kind of the intro into textures. Next month we can do something a little bit more complex. So now what I'm going to do is, again, go back to my textured overlays, and I'll go to this rock pattern. And now I'm just looking at different rock patterns here, and right off the bat, this one jumps out at me. This the one number 4. I really like it because I'm starting to see, especially over here, some cracks, maybe even some here. So what I can do is I can either do this, I can hit add frame just to see what it'll look like. So I'm starting to get ideas of what I can do. This one looks a bit too abrupt. I might play around with it, but these right here, especially right there, definitely not on the door because that doesn't make sense. It kind of breaks the visual logic of the shot. But I'm really digging some of this stuff. So again, what I can do is, the nice thing about PhotoFrame is I can start positioning. I can kind of move it around if I want. You know, I could lower it. Or again, I can do this. The reason why I like doing this in PhotoFrame is because it gives me a visual right here. I can go into Photoshop and do a free transform, but I'm getting the ideas right now. So when I'm ready, let's hit cancel. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice, at least on this image. And let's turn it on. So here we've got, let's turn our blending mode to normal, and we can start playing around with where this applies. There are 2 ways you can go about it. Like I said, you can delete this layer mask, boost that to 100%, or you could delete the layer mask and invert it and then paint it in. In this case here, I would probably spend more time because I want to see where the existing cracks are. And by doing that, I just use the black paintbrush and I can start painting out where I don't want the cracks. So I might I'll get rid of this entire wall. I don't really want any of that. Let me boost my brush size here. And I'm just going to keep literally, you know, if you kind of look at it, we're only, you know, picking and choosing certain elements of the frame. So I really like these cracks right here. I'll adjust, by adjusting the opacity, it'll kind of blend it a little bit better. Or I can adjust the opacity of the mask itself. I'll get rid of all this right here. I don't want any of that. I kind of like this crack in the cement over here, so I'm going to leave that. And this is what I do. I just go from left to right or from right to left, get rid of all that. And just kind of get rid of this over here. I'm going to keep that little crack over there. And again, we're going to blend afterwards. But the point is just scrubbing around, getting rid of the parts that you don't want. I don't want any cracks in the brick. The brick, I mean, it wouldn't it wouldn't match the pattern of the rest of the brick if there were cracks. So let's just get rid of all this stuff. I'm just going to quickly paint out the wood so that the crack kind of appears over here. And make sure that that's painted out. And this is what I was doing in preparation for the webinar, was just kind of having fun with this. I actually had a blast doing it because it really opened my eyes to an image that I thought was, you know, there was not much else I can do to it just by playing around with these textures. So once we're done, and this is, again, just a rough a rough pass at it, but you can start playing around with opacities to kind of start blending it. And you can also, if you want to paint a little bit more of the color in, you can change your color from black to white here. So white is going to restore some of the mask, and you can just drop your opacity really low and just start painting in a little bit of that color back in to kind of blend it. And it's not a quick one-step process. You know, you want to be very fine with this stuff. And remember, as you're painting in, you're also going to paint in any cracks that you might have painted out. So you just want to be somewhat artistic about it. So let me see. I'm going to take a stop for a second. I want to see if there are any questions, and we'll continue on. Does PhotoFrame remember the texture I've used last? Sort of. If you go, let me toggle this for a second. So let's say you want to apply the same texture twice, or you want to apply the same texture onto another image without going back into PhotoFrame. If you go into PhotoFrame, instead of double clicking, you single click on this palette, and then you go to last used. You've got this last used, so it remembers the last thing you did. PhotoFrame only remembers the last one iteration. Photo Tools remembers the last 6. So if you go back here and you go to Photo Tools and go to the recently used, you've got the last 6 options. So that, in a way, is how you can get, like I said, if you want this texture or whatever the last action you did, if you want it on another image, you can do that. I am using Eileen's asking whether I'm using a tablet. Yeah, I'm using an Intuos 4 by Wacom, just because I couldn't think of an easier way to edit photos than with a pen tablet. I definitely recommend it. Hector's asking if we can add our own photos of textures. Yep, I will be going over that at the end of the webinar, how you can get your own images in. There are 2 ways you can do it. All right, let me continue on. PhotoFrame batch, there's a question as to what PhotoFrame batch is. It's just if you have a particular preset, or if you want to use one of our Guru's presets, which is a combination of frames and overlays. Let's say you have 10 images that you want to apply the same frame to. So a series, let's say a wedding series, and you want them all to have the same frame. The PhotoFrame batch command will allow you to apply, it'll automate that process for you instead of having to open up 10 images individually. Okay, so that was another example. And again, we would have normally, if that was an image that I was prepping to post online, or if it was a production image, I would definitely have spent more time just blending it. But the goal that I want to convey is use textures, but use them methodically. So let's open up this image here. I took this image in Seattle when I was in Seattle for the first time last year. Again, the oft-mentioned Jacob, who is going to be coming up in a second, actually. We found this kind of abandoned. It wasn't really abandoned, but these trucks that were clearly beyond function were just parked over here. And so I just took this shot. This was originally, this is one of the brackets in a series of an HDR image that I'm working on, but I just wanted to use one of the individual brackets. And so I want to figure out a way that I could get a little bit more texture or character to this truck and to the truck in the back. So what I did was I went into PhotoFrame. Shocker. And I started going through our textures. Again, shocker. Now, I found that under the artistic media subcategory, there was a cool kind of cracked pattern. You know, I know that this paint, what does paint do when it's dried, when it's hot? You know, it cracks. So that's kind of how I was thinking, and I wanted to see if I can find a texture to match. So I was scrolling down, and sure enough, there's this one right here. You know, I especially like the way it appears in the white paint. And so what I can do is I would hit apply frame to start working on it, but we'll cancel out of PhotoFrame and we'll just turn that layer on. Oops. Now, Oh, I see what I did. All right. What I didn't show you was that in PhotoFrame, I went to the blending style and I changed it to color burn, which is why you see it like this. So I apologize for that. If you let's actually just to be fair and to do everything completely, I'll show you what I mean. We'll go to back into PhotoFrame and we'll apply that exact same texture. We'll go under the artistic media and it was this one right here. And we'll hit add frame instead of apply frame. And what I did was I went under the you can go under various blending modes and just change it to the look that you want. Or if you want, you can do it in Photoshop. So it was just this color burn that you can see right there that I applied, which is right here, color burn. Now, what I did was I dropped the opacity, and I got it to a point that I was happy. So here you're probably around, let's see, yeah, right around here, like 46, 47%, you can see the texture. And using the layer mask, I'm just going to use a brush with black as my foreground color and paint out the parts of the image where I don't want the texture to apply. So let me boost my opacity up here with the brush and kind of just, I don't want, basically I don't want the texture to apply anywhere but those panels of the truck. Now, you want to be careful because you also want to paint it out of there are windows here and the windows would not have that pattern. So you just kind of paint it out. And I'm just kind of getting it to the point where it's, for the most part, complete. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna drop my feathering down. Let me do this. Hardness is good. Okay. Okay. So you can see now we have this cool kind of consistent pattern. And if you only say you only wanted it over here, that's fine. You know, you'll want to paint it out of the Ford sign because it wouldn't have that crack. But I like the way it appears here. It's kind of uniform. And if you want, you can kind of drop the opacity even more. It's totally up to you how it appears. You can take a look by hitting the backslash key to see if you've missed anything. So in this case, I've missed the window. Little things like that will show up, especially also in Photo Tools. If you're masking out effects in Photo Tools, you'll always want to show your mask to see if you have any gaps. So here we've got the image. And in this case here, I'm actually going to boost up the pattern a little bit. And now what I want to do is kind of apply a texture to the back truck, just to create some sort of a dimension or separation between this foreground truck. The background truck kind of has a similar color to it. So if color is not the bias, then maybe texture can be the bias. And so we can go back into PhotoFrame. I'm going to select my background layer and go to Automate and go into PhotoFrame. So in this case here, what I was doing is looking for a different texture, and I found one. If we go under the back into the texture overlays, if we go into paper, so I started looking for a pattern that I like. And again, I'm only looking over here. I'm not looking at the rest of the image. I really don't care what the rest of the image, what the texture does to the rest of the image, because I'm happy with that one texture. I could easily compound textures, but I just said how I want to separate the two trucks using texture as my bias. It wouldn't make sense to have the same texture appear in both trucks. So in this case here, I'm going to select this one right here, this number 4, and I would normally hit apply or add frame, but in this case, we'll cancel out a photo frame, and I'm going to just activate that layer. And so again, this layer, I did a color burn on it, but you can go to normal if you want. And I'm just focusing over here. So I'm going to go to the color burn, and I'm going to drop the opacity really low, just enough so you can see something there. And again, with the layer mask, just like you said, I'm going to delete this time. It's because I've got the area of the image that I want to apply the texture to is in the minority. I'm just going to delete this layer mask. And then again, Option on the Mac, Alt on a PC. I'm going to hold that key, and I'm going to click on this new layer mask button. And what it does is it fills it with black. So now with my brush tool, I'm going to press X, to toggle from black to white, and I'm just free now to paint in the texture where I want it. And I'm going to refine it a little bit more because I don't want it to appear on that chrome that's surrounding the wheel. I just kind of want it over here. I'd probably paint out that door handle too. But again, I'm not going to be too picky while I have you guys here. Well, maybe we will. Let's paint that out. Let's paint that out. Let's paint this in. Paint that out. See, it's fun. Well, it's fun when you're driving, I guess. So that is that's another way to use textures as a way to bias foreground and background. Here, this is sloppy. Let's just, oops. Let's just paint this in right here. And we've got two different textures. If this is still too much for you, just drop the opacity down. It'll still be visual. It'll still register visually, but you can see you've got more of a crack pattern here, and here you've got more of kind of a box pattern, which I like. And then you can take it to the next level and add some more if you want, or you can add a frame. So let me close out of here and bring up our final image. So I said that textures don't always work on people, but it kind of does in a way. This is my friend Jacob that I've mentioned, a very good friend of mine. We were out in Red Rock Canyon last year, around September. It was a Photoshop World in Vegas. And afterwards, we just rented a car and drove out to Red Rock Canyon, which is maybe a 15, 20-minute drive outside of the city. And so I was thinking, what can I do to this image to make it better? My goal here is to, I'm using the shallow depth of field. This is a 70 to 200 lens at its widest aperture of 2.8. So I'm bringing focus to Jacob just because the background is shallow. And so your eyes just kind of wander. Plus Jacob, the tonality of Jacob, he's definitely brighter than the rest of the image. But still, there's more that I can do here. The background itself is not very interesting, so I don't mind applying a texture over it. If I'm going to cover this texture, I want to make sure that I'm not ruining the image in the process. So what I can do is, that's the first thing that I want to do is I just want to apply some texture. So I'm going to go to File, Automate, and I see that there are a bunch of questions. Once we're done here, we're going to go through the questions. We'll do a fun little Q&A session. So let's go here and let's find a texture that works. So in this case, I know that I wanted a scratch film. And I know that only because, like I said yesterday, I literally went through the images and I just scrolled down. I found one that I liked and I took a note of it. You can also hit this flag button to make it a favorite, or you can rate it and then sort it and filter it that way. But I remember that this one right here, this third one is the one I want because I liked the vertical lines. It's drawing your eyes down. So I'm going to hit, this time, Add Frame. The reason for that is because I want to use this dropper. So someone asked us a question, where did the dropper come from? It's right here. You'll go to the background tab of this window, and you can see all the different windows that you have here. So here's Hide Background. That's the one you'll want. Next to it is this little color swatch, and to the right of that is this dropper. So if I click it, anywhere that I click, it'll change the color of that mask. So this texture overlay is going to just change colors to whatever you want. So I do typically like my overlays or my textures to be darker because, as you can see, if we do it lighter, it kind of loses itself. In a way, it could work because this gives it a hazy look to it in the desert, but I kind of like it a little bit darker just because it gives it more of a screen feel. So let's say we go with this color, for instance. I'm going to hit Cancel and activate that layer. So here's the layer. We can change our we can find a style that we like. Again, Shift plus and minus with the Move tool. That's kind of cool in a way. And this is a tip that I've picked up from Jim DeVitale, watching all of his webinars that he does for us. He just kind of, he'll always put a layer on and just kind of start cycling through Shift plus and Shift minus. And you can see as I'm doing that, it's basically toggling through all of these styles. So let's find one that we like. I think maybe hard light might be good. Nah, let's go to multiply. Okay, multiply is cool. Now what we can do is, I want the texture to apply everywhere except for Jacob. So all I'm going to do is use this brush and paint out. And by doing this, especially with a person, what I've noticed when I was actually working on this image, when I was prepping it for the webinar, was that it gives Jacob a three-dimensional feel, like he's popping off the image, because when you mask out the background, or when you mask out overlay, the overlay goes into the background. It becomes part of the background, and so you can almost see. Let me just fix this up really quickly. You can almost start to see Jacob kind of popping off the screen, because you've got this consistent pattern appearing everywhere but on him. If it appeared on him, he would just kind of match into the background. But because we are taking care, and again, backslash to see what we're missing, you kind of control exactly where the overlay appears, and you can really, really give that three-dimensional look. All right, so let's pretend that I was really neat with my drawing. The next thing that I wanted to do was, here's something that admittedly I wasn't a fan of until I was hired at onOne Software, and I started seeing more of my colleagues use this. And I actually kind of came to like it, and it works well here. If we go back into PhotoFrame, let me select my background layer. We have a series of overlays that I'll just drop into it for a second, called text. And so you can see these various words appear in different fonts. Now, I can answer this question in advance because I get asked this question every time we demo. You can't customize the words. It's just a flat-out layer mask. What you can do is you can type out your own layer and create it so you can type out words and import it into PhotoFrame if you'd like. Here, this is just the same repeating pattern. So I can't select the text using the text tool and change the words around. It's just take it or leave it. So what we're going to do is, I was just searching through and I was trying to find a font that kind of has that kind of like Sons of Anarchy, or like, I picture just a motorcycle gang driving through this road. Wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I do remember going through several times and kind of settling on this one, number 5. So let me close out, and I'll show you what you can do and kind of how it can work with the image. So just to see, you could see that the font is now a different color. In PhotoFrame, I used that dropper and I sampled the color from the mountain. I didn't want it to be dark. And all I need to do now is really quickly use a masking brush and just paint out. This case here, I'm going to almost paint around, I'm going to paint off of Jacob, but I'm also going to paint around him. I'm going to give him a little bit of a border. And I just wanted to have a kind of a clean edge. The reason why is because I don't want it to come right up to his body. It doesn't, by kind of creating this border here, you're creating a shape around him. And so that's what I focused on first, was trying to create a shape around him. And you can refine it as you see fit. And then when I was happy, I just kind of matched out the text from him. What you can do is also, you can hit Command or Control T to go into a free transform. And then if you want to kind of compress the text or stretch it out, you can do that. And if you can't see, if you want to stretch from the bottom and you can't see it, just hit Command or Control minus to zoom out a little bit, and you can see the bottom here. So you can kind of control exactly where it appears. And so in this case, when the mask first came in, it was like this. So I had a gap at the bottom. So I just stretched it down because I wanted the words to kind of justify with the bottom line of the frame. And so here I can just kind of continue on painting out. But I like the look. If you want, you could drop the opacity a little bit if you don't want that much of it. But I really like the way it looked. You can, if you want, like originally I also painted out this top layer. I didn't like it appearing there. I felt it distracted too much. Um, so there you go. That's just another way that you can use actually text as an overlay um, to your image. So let's quickly, before we take questions, I'm going to show you how you can get um, your own images into PhotoFrame. You can see here that I've got two images here. And if there's anything else that you can take out of the webinar, other than creative ways to use textures, is when you're out shooting, shoot a brick wall, shoot anything. I have this image here, and I've got this image here. Both images have texture to them, and they both can make really cool overlays when you use them in combination with layer masks and transparencies. You can really have, especially like in this image, I love this area up here. I love this particular area right here. These are all great little nuggets that you can use. Oh, right here, you can, if you have a boring wall, just a regular white wall, how awesome would it be to mask this portion in here? It would work perfectly. So let's just take the first image and let's bring it into Photoshop. The reason why I'm bringing the images in is because in order to load PhotoFrame from Photoshop, you need to have an image loaded. So now I can go into PhotoFrame, and let's do the first way of getting an image. This is pretty easy. We can go to PhotoFrame here, and I'm just going to go to, in the library, I'm going to go to File, and then Import Frame. And now I'm going to select my first image, wall pattern 01.jpg, and hit Choose. It's going to say frame will be copied to the library, yada yada. Hit OK. Frame's in here. So if you go to your search field, you can start typing wall pattern, and there it is, wall pattern 01.jpg. So you can hit Add Frame and play around with it. Even though it was a color image, all it did was create a mask. So you can see where the pattern applies, and you can kind of shrink it down if you only want it to appear on a certain part of your image. Another thing that you can do is if you go to the user category, you can, I imported a logo. At one of the webinars I recently did, someone asked if you can get your logo into PhotoFrame to use as a watermark. Absolutely. I just did exactly that. You can see my logo right here. It's just a JPEG, and now I can kind of apply it wherever I want. So I can hit Add Frame. There's my logo. I can drop it in size because when it comes in, it stretches to the screen, or it stretches to the size of the image. So here I can kind of just put it over here if I want. So let me hit Cancel. And now let's get the other way to get an image into PhotoFrame. Let's go back into PhotoFrame here. Let's say you want this image to appear in one of the existing categories. So we go into texture overlays, and we can go to rock. No, let's go to architecture. Okay, so you can see the file names, texture underscore architecture underscore 01.frm, and if you go to the bottom, you'll see the last one right now is texture underscore architecture underscore 18.frm. So this is important. 18. Next number is 19. So what I do is I just note texture underscore architecture underscore 19. If I go to the Finder and I type, actually no, scratch that. This is important. If you're a Mac user or a PC user, it's not just a matter of hitting F2 to rename. You want to get the info. You want to go into the properties of the image and go to this section here, name and extension. And we're going to do texture underscore, architecture underscore 19. And it was a JPEG. We're going to change it to .frm for frame. By doing it over here, we're going to ensure that the extension is actually changed. I'm going to hit close. And now it's a frame. So watch what happens. If we go to File, Import Frame, and select that one right there, we choose, if we scroll down to the bottom, we now have that 19 and it appears as a mask. So we can start customizing. And here's where I was saying if we hit, let's actually, I want to try something out. Let's cancel out of here. Let's open the second one. I gave myself an idea while we were doing this. Let's go here. Let's take this this image, bring it into Photoshop. Go to PhotoFrame. And why is PhotoFrame's not launched? I just want to see what that looks like. Or we could just quit out of Photoshop and do it again. I'm telling you, no one is immune to crashes, even webinar hosts. So let's just see if Photoshop is launching. So those are just really quickly, those were the two ways. The first way was just getting an image without doing anything. It'll just appear. You have to search for the file name. The other way is to rename it to the texture, the category that you want it to apply to. And the easiest way to do that is go into the category that you want your image to apply to. And it doesn't apply just to textures. It can go into any category in PhotoFrame. Each category has its own unique file structure. So I'm just humoring myself now at everyone's expense. I want to go here. Let's see if PhotoFrame will launch this time. It won't. Okay, well, I'll do it another time then. I'm going to do questions with you guys now. Nice, smooth segue. I'm just going through a bunch of different. Does it matter if it's JPEG or RAW? I assume if you're asking about importing your images into PhotoFrame, they have to be JPEGs or .frm. So from a JPEG, you can change the extension. So that's can you repeat that, please? Sure. Let's import again. Actually, we might not be able to because PhotoFrame isn't launching. But what I did in PhotoFrame was I went into the library and I went to File and then Import Frame, and then I just pointed to the JPEG file to import it. Are there any tutorials? Nina's asking if there are any tutorials on onOne to add your own frames. Yeah, actually there is. If you go to the onOne website, let me just go here. And then you go to the university page at the top. Under the free training videos, if you go to PhotoFrame, I just recorded this video under advanced topics. The last one is creating and importing your own frames. So this video will actually outline how to not only import frames, but how to create your own frames in Photoshop. You will need Photoshop, or I think the latest version of Photoshop Elements supports layer masks, so you can do it in Elements as well. When is Perfect Layers coming out? Soon. That is what next month is going to be a public preview release that you can download, kind of like a beta, and then the final version will be coming out shortly. Is there a realistic way to create fog? There's a cool effect in Photo Tools to create fog. So I would use, that's how if I ever want to simulate rain or fog, go into Photo Tools and do a search for either one of those elements and they'll pop up. Does the file, if you want to add your own textures, does the file need to be a particular size, type, or bit? It needs to be JPEG. You don't need to go crazy with the file size. You can make it smaller. Obviously, the lower the resolution, the worse it'll look if you try to enlarge it. So these are all actually pretty. The two that I imported here were pretty beefy. This one's a 14 megabyte JPEG. So these are full resolution JPEGs. They're not compressed. Let's see what it's a pretty big JPEG. I could have compressed this 75% down and it still would have looked good. So it's really up to you. Um, can you share with us any good websites that have free or paid frames? Um, so this was one of the reasons why I wanted to also educate you guys, if, especially if you're existing PhotoFrame owners, that the wide variety of different textures and overlays, because they're already part of the product. You don't have to pay for them. However, if you want to, if you have your own images, I showed you the various ways to get them into PhotoFrame. If you still want to get other images, or you're looking for to build your overlay catalog, I know on Flickr, if you do a search for free textures, there was a group. I don't know. This is a total disclaimer. You're going to have to read the terms of the submitters, but you could basically use the textures. They give away the textures that you can use in Photoshop for free. I think you just have to credit them when you pay. Obviously, you can't do that in PhotoFrame, so I don't recommend taking someone else's textures unless you know the owner and the owner gives you permission, or you're the owner yourself. Can you copy a batch of textures into PhotoFrame? Yeah, you can select multiple JPEGs at once or multiple FRM files at once and import them. That will work just fine. Will onOne be offering PhotoFrame for $99? So we recently had a promotion over the weekend called Buy Like an Owner, where we offered every individual product for $99. I don't know if that's going to happen again or when. Um, so I would just keep my eye out. That was a good deal, though. After you import the frame, does the original file go away? Nope. Here are the two files that I imported. They're sitting right here. You can delete them if you'd like. PhotoFrame basically makes a copy of it and puts it into its own database. So you don't need them over there. They won't disappear if you delete them. Let me see if there are any other. Can you apply your own textures into a specific onOne category? Yeah, Tracy, I just showed that. So if you didn't catch that, I would recommend just either we'll do another session of this, I think next week or the week after, or you can catch it on the recorded session. Um, Let me see. Can you import complex PSD templates like that into onOne? No. The only elements that you can import into PhotoFrame are basically JPEGs, or you could the easiest way for me to explain to you is actually just to point you to this video right here, because this goes into the different methods of frames that you can import in. There are more complex ways that you can get, say, uh, color images in. So right now, when I apply any one of these color textures, they turn to black and white. It just turns into a mask. But if you want to have, say, a background appear, like a full color background, there are a few more steps you have to take, and that was something I was actually going to save for the intermediate session next month. But it's also in this video right there, so you can check it out. Um, if you don't own any onOne software, which would you recommend to start with? Mia, that's a very, very loaded question. Of course, the answer is every one of them, and get the suite. It's up to you. I don't know what each product of the suite is targeted to do a different thing, or different make working on your images easier in different ways. So you have to figure out what would work best for you or what you're looking to do. When will this be available in iTunes? In a couple of days, probably by Monday at the latest. See, I love these Q&A sessions. Uh, what if you are an Aperture user? Well, let's go into Aperture. If you go into Aperture, we have plugins. Some of our products require Photoshop and you can access them through Aperture. But if you go to Edit with Plugin, you can see right here. So we can select this image and then go to Photo, Edit with Plugin, and then you can access the products through here. So focal point, perfect resize. PhotoTune and PhotoFrame. Those are also standalone products with the latest version of the suite 5.5, meaning you don't even need Photoshop installed, they'll just launch. Mask Pro and Photo Tools require Photoshop because they kind of build on the technology within Photoshop. So I hope that helps. Um, Cynthia's saying that she's looking for old frames from previous versions of PhotoFrame. Are they available? Unless you kept your old database, they're not currently available. We have to cycle through them. Is there a plugin for Lightroom? Absolutely. Um, if you go to Lightroom and you go to any one of these images here, and you go to File, Plugin Extras, the same plugins appear right here, so you can access them. They appear if you have Lightroom and or Aperture installed, and then you install the suite. They'll appear here, so you can just pop them in. All my clouds are white. So I assume that means that, Tom, that you went into, let me see if I can get the photo frame from here. Open. Cool. All right, so I assume you are saying you went to the textured overlays, then went to clouds. At the bottom here, under frame background, if you hit white, the clouds are white. So you'll want to hit black, and you'll want to select none of if realistic to see the clouds in black. I assume that's what you're talking about. Is there a limit to the number of frames you can add? Nope, not at all. Can you please show me how to find your webinar on iTunes? Yeah, once I go through the final slides, let me actually just do a quick time check. And we are over time, which is fine by me. I just want to make sure it's cool with you guys. Um, I will show you in a few minutes how to get into that. Um, all right, I'll keep going. Um, Can you layer the textures in Aperture like you did in Photoshop? No, but you will be able to do that with Perfect Layers, which comes out very soon. Aperture and Lightroom, they do not have layered workflows. Basically, everything you work on, while it's non-destructive, appears on the image itself. You can't actually have layers and mask certain things. You kind of sort of can with the adjustment brushes, but to truly have layered workflow and stack different elements, you need currently Photoshop. When we release Perfect Layers, that will be the first, or one of the first, outside of Photoshop layered workflow solutions. It'll work with Lightroom, it'll work with Aperture, and it'll be a standalone product, so you don't need Photoshop. Um, Peter's asking, why does it put textures in a folder? Peter, if you can elaborate that question, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Um, will this work with Pixelmator? I don't know what Pixelmator is, so I don't want to answer something that I'm not 100% sure of. Um, but yeah, I do see several people giving me recommendations of other users on Flickr for textures, backgrounds that are given away. There are plenty of them. Just make sure, and be sensitive to it. If you're not the owner of an image, and someone's giving an image away, just make sure you know what their terms are. If they want you to credit them, then try to credit them. But Flickr is a great resource. Before I got into PhotoFrame and I needed to apply a texture, I would just scour. Um, Flickr for that. The problem is that I would amass this large folder of various textures, and if I previewed them, I just saw the texture itself. The wonderful thing about PhotoFrame, as you can see, is you see the texture on top of the image. You get a live preview of what it does. That's what's fantastic about PhotoFrame. You have this full interface right here. I couldn't do this with just a basic Finder or even with Photoshop. I'd have to add them to their own layers and turn one off and another one on. And absolutely, Mia says it's more fun to go out and shoot your own. I love doing it. You never there are textures everywhere, so just shoot it and then import it into PhotoFrame, and you've got your own. So, um, okay. Um, when giving a rating in PhotoFrame, how do you search by rating? Let's see. So let's say I give this a 5 rating, so it goes 5. On the bottom here in the library, you see filter results. I'll turn 5 on, and it appears there. So let's do none, and then let's say I want favorites. I've got the favorite is this flag. So let's say I do these two as favorite. See, this is not very friendly. I can't see if it's red or not. Just because of, if you're colorblind, red-green colorblind, then you'll feel my pain. All right, now, so we selected 3 different favorites. If I filter by flag, so I must have not turned those on, but here's a favorite. Oh, it's per category, I see. So yeah, the filtering is per category or subcategory. So I'd want to go to the master category to filter if I want everything under it. So that's kind of how you can filter. And you can also sort by alphabetical or by your favorites or by rating. So there are various ways. Also, the thumbnail size, if you want to see a bunch of them at once, just drop the thumbnail size for it to render all of them. If you update from Suite 5 to 5.5.1, are all your frames and PTO stuff lost? I know from 4 to 5 you do, but from 5 to 5.5.1, I don't think so. Still, the best bet is to, if you go to, in both PhotoFrame and Photo Tools, if you do your own presets, if you go to File and then Open Presets folder, the safest bet is to, and this is for those of you who want to back up your frames, just back up this folder, the presets folder. That'll make sure that in the event that something does get overwritten, you can just bring it back. So again, in the product, go to File and then Open Presets folder. You'll see the same option in Photo Tools. What version? Paul's saying that you can't open up the onOne palette in Photoshop. What version of Photoshop are you running? Because that's something that I believe came with CS5, and it was with it started with the plugin Suite 5, and then it carried over to Perfect Photo Suite 5.5. So you have CS5. Um, just go if it's not there. If you don't see that, then 2 things. One, the first classic suggestion is to reinstall the suite. Second thing is to reach out to our support team because you should definitely have that option there, and we'll make sure that we work with you. The reason why each texture, Peter, was placed on its own folder or its own layer is because, oh, and I can't do it here because I'm not in Photoshop. Show options is grayed out. If you try to access PhotoFrame from the standalone product and not from Photoshop, the options will be turned off because there are no layers. You only have layers in the stack palette. So if we let's try going back to, let's quit Photoshop. I'm not sure if maybe there was a PhotoFrame was running or one of the subcommands was running in the background in the activity monitor, but let's try it again. Let's open an image. Let's bring it into Photoshop. It's Jacob. PhotoFrame. Okay, now it looks like it's going to work. I hope. Yeah, there we go. So if we close, if you're in Photoshop, and let me see, show options. The reason why it does that is because you might have this option selected, apply each frame to a new layer. If you just apply it to a new layer, it'll basically flatten everything onto one layer for you. I don't recommend doing that. So I hope that helps. I think I got most everyone's questions. I want to make sure. Could you copy the previous mask? That was a question asked earlier. Yeah, you can duplicate a mask from one layer to the other. So if so let's just see here. Let's delete this mask here. You could, if I wanted to, I can just copy this here, and or move it, either one. But I personally like to work on masks unique, like separately, just because it allows me to really fine tune how the layer appears on top of the layer below it. So it's up to you. If you know that you want, say, Jacob masked through all the layers, you can do that. But in my case here, I just kind of like to do it individually, layer by layer. Okay, let's if multiple textures are stacked in PhotoFrame, do I have access to opacity blend modes for each texture? Um, you do, in terms, so I assume if you're saying, let's just go here, let's go to PhotoFrame. So if we go here, we add this frame, and then we go here, let's make the size. Okay, and then we go back to the library and we add that. So now we've got two different frames here on their own layers. And so are you saying, like, if I change this to soft light and then I change that to darken? Yeah, I mean, each layer you have the properties in PhotoFrame. If you leave everything alone as default, and you have this option, apply each frame to the new layer selected, and then you hit apply, you'll have those same options in Photoshop, because each of these two elements, the frame itself and the texture overlay, will appear on its own layer. Each layer will have, you can customize the opacity, the blending modes, everything, the size. So they work in PhotoFrame and in Photoshop. Um, David, if you're having issues running our products on the Windows machine in 32-bit, um, definitely reach out to our support team if you haven't already. Backslash on the Mac button, Jeff, is just it's the key above the Enter Return key if you're using a Mac keyboard, and it's to the right of the right bracket key. It's a backslash with the pipe on top of it. That'll reveal the mask. When is onOne going to make a move to developing an HDR plugin? Well, Ron, you've continued the trend of someone asking me that on every single webinar that I've done so far. Um, there is no answer to that I can give you. Not yet, at least. Don, you're going to want to reach out to me, Don, on email. I'm going to give my email address in a minute. I see your question as to the opacity of your of the frame that you're trying to get into there, and I'll work with you offline. It's just I can't. It's not something I can answer just talking. I need to see it. Um, when I access PhotoFrame through Lightroom and click Apply, PhotoFrame closes, but I don't see the image in Lightroom. What am I doing wrong? Well, Miriam, it depends on what you selected on the. If we go into Lightroom and you go to File, Plugin Extras, and hit PhotoFrame, it depends on what you selected here on your radio button. If you hit Edit Original, which I never recommend doing, just toggle off your image and toggle back onto it in grid view, and you should see the updated image. If you hit edit with a copy, it should just stack back in if you had this check mark. If not, it would appear in whatever folder you were selected in, you were in when you hit apply. So I'm not sure which one you selected, but if you did the second radio button, you should certainly have a second copy of the image. If you hit original, you basically overwrote um, your image. If you have onOne in Lightroom, is this redundant? Not at all. Um, there, Lightroom is primarily an image library manager as well as a pretty powerful photo editing product. Our products are much more. We don't do any library management, so Lightroom in that way is it doesn't compete in any way. It's if anything a companion product or a host product for our products. How would you make templates for a photo book? This is a very good question. I'm actually working with a photographer to Whitney Stevens, who, if you go to our website, and I'll go over this in a second, and download our free templates, those are templates that she designed using PhotoFrame to make photo albums. So we're going to have a webinar on that, how to use PhotoFrame to build photo albums, and that I'm really looking forward to as well.